right, so the first step is we need to dig a shallow furrow across one length of the garden. So what this is going to do is give us an area to bury one edge of the row cover. Once the ground freezes and the row cover is buried in the soil, it's almost like it's buried in rock. It won't come out until spring when the ground thaws, so it just makes it a very secure structure. So I'm going to come over here on the short side and just, someone want to help me? You want to start on that side? We'll work towards each other. All right, that's plenty. That's plenty. Thanks. All right, so once we have this nice furrow, then we're gonna take these. These are called hoop loops. We ordered them from Johnny's Selected Seeds. They're just kind of a general farm and garden store online. The link to purchase all of these materials and give you kind of just access to what they are and where they come from is all in the digital files we're gonna share with you in the instructions for doing this at the end of the workshop. So you guys notice I'm putting in the hoop loop not parallel to the side of the bed. I'm putting it in more parallel. I'm imagining a rectangle across the area of the bed. You want to kind of minimize the amount of twisting. You know, we're building a rectangle that doesn't work well with curves. So there's the first one. Here's the second. I'm trying to make it parallel to that. Alright, and then we can just use the other. Ms. Taylor, you can do the second one. So I'll do the middle one next so I can kind of keep the pattern even, and then we'll just do the next one even in between here and here. Now the nice thing about these hoop loops, and really any kind of structure that you're building in the garden at this point, you can adjust the height. If you're putting this over kale that are Swiss chard to try to extend that season, and those plants are higher, you can put those in a little bit shallower so that you have more room to grow. And same thing in the spring. If you're noticing that your plants are really taking off and you don't feel confident with the weather to take the cover off yet, just raise them up a little bit and kind of give those plants some more room. For now, we're going to install it low because we're going to talk about kind of seeding in here, and we're not going to have any plants growing up into it. And also when it's low, it's less visible. This is, I would feel like maybe a target for some rambunctious child who wants to investigate what's happening in the garden and kind of hurt the structure, vandalize the structure, even if they're just being curious. So kind of a low profile helps keep it a little bit more out of sight, at least from passerbys. So then we kind of need to beef up this structure. This is going to have to support some heavy snow loads this winter, which is kind of another point where you can kind of introduce engineering and design concepts with your students and have them kind of maybe calculate and estimate how much weight a 6-inch snowfall would actually mean for this structure and how they need to beef up the structure in order to kind of support that weight. Some ideas that we had too for water, to make sure water doesn't pool and collapse it, which is another way you can kind of introduce some design concepts with students, is have the center be higher and the outside be lower so that the structure has a slope and there's some runoff. There's a lot of different kind of variations that you can do. Don't feel like you have to follow every single thing that we're introducing to you. You let your students kind of do some trial and error and some experimentation. So just a basic way of strengthening the structure is tying some twine. And then these are really nice because you can just kind of, like a keychain, slip them in. I'm kind of taking a little bit of the slack out as I'm going.
Other way.
know, at this point you would tie this off. You can also kind of add one layer across this side as well. However, how strong you want to make it is kind of up to you and your students to experience. You guys are going to want to do this with students too, right? Everybody can work together. We want this to be evenly draped over the structure and kind of down in the ground. That side's going to go into the furrow, and this side is just, all it's going to do is just touch the soil. It doesn't have to be really well secured, except for on this side. This goes into the furrow. Exactly. Perfect, guys. So this is now down all the way. I'm pushing this all the way down into the bottom in the furrow that we dug at the beginning. And I'm tucking it, I'm pushing it with my hands up against the supports, because when we're putting the plastic on over it and we're securing that with staples, we don't want those staples to go in the soil and puncture our fabric. We want to keep it, let it last for 3 or 4 years to come. So if we avoid putting holes in it, that kind of help extend its life. So I'm just tucking it over with my hands, and then I'm going to take a little bit of soil bury the edge of the fabric. So this way, this is not going anywhere now on this side. This is now kind of permanent until it thaws in the spring. Now that that's secure, let's move on with the plastic. No, it goes under. Yeah, exactly. It goes under. Oh, so just so you guys kind of get an idea of what's going on here, the fabric is adding kind of some thermal protection, and the plastic is just really more for giving it some more rigidity, and also kind of allowing the energy that the sun is passing through to kind of reflect back down, and it's keeping in more moisture. So, and this is something you're going to observe with your students as the plants are growing. You're talking about plant cycles and water cycles. The plants, you know, absorb water from the soil, they transpire it out of their leaves, and it goes into the atmosphere. It's going to condense on the inside of the plastic. You will see kind of, it'll fog up and it'll be kind of dripping down, and that'll just cycle back down into the water. So once you put the seeds in and you give it a good water, you're probably not going to need to water it at all until you're taking the cover off in the spring. Maybe one time if it's really dry. Now the last step is securing the plastic so it's not going to blow away, and it's going to keep everything tight and rigid, and it'll help support the structure. So on the sides that we're not going to be lifting up through the spring, through the winter, we're using these staples as kind of a permanent anchor. So we're going to do 2 on the corners that are going to help pull it taut across the length, and then 2 in the middle that'll hold it kind of laterally. So I'll start over here.
So is there a side? So on this side's being pulled up, because that side's frozen in, right?
Exactly. And also, you know, I've done this before, so I didn't mention it, but you know, this is a shorter curve. So it's a smaller, if we were going to use this as our window to get in, it gives us a smaller access to the bed. This is a longer curve, so on this side we have a little bit more room to, I mean, it is rectangular, but you know, if you spread it out, and especially as you see when we do it on that more dramatically curved bed, that really kind of does give you more access to what's growing underneath. Before I stick this in, I'm going to pull this kind of top. I'm going to tuck the plastic under a little, and then I'm just going to puncture this straight through the plastic down into the soil, and that's going to stay in the ground until the springtime. Same thing on this side. I'm going to try to avoid pushing it up against where I buried the fabric, and push it in kind of at an angle towards the bed, so I avoid puncturing the fabric.
The fabric is tears really easily here, so why we don't want to puncture it. It'll last for longer. How come puncture away on the plastic?
Because if you did it on both sides, you wouldn't be able to open it at all.
Oh. This way you can peek in under on the side, take a look at the stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, with these, they're kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Halloween implements, right? Right for the season. We're going to do the same thing. We have 3 of them. 2 are going to go on the corners to kind of pull it tight the long way, and then 1 is going to go in the middle. One thing I want to point out is this whole thing, all 3 of these holes don't need to puncture the plastic. That would kind of rip it to shreds, right? All you have to do is put 1 through the plastic, and these will go down into the soil. So I'm just going to kind of pull it tight.
Actually, Joe, you can come over here because you're going to do
I'll tuck the extra under.
Let him do the end one first. Okay. So then we can all kind of help him keep it tight. Yep, that's perfect. It looks like Sam just ran into the irrigation. I kind of saw it, so we just kind of moved it a few centimeters. And then those are easy to work.
You want to investigate and kind of measure, have your students track how long it takes for seeds to germinate when it's 30 degrees outside. This is the side with this handle that you can easily remove from the soil, that you're going to be able to open it up, kind of fold it all back, take some measurements, investigate growth, add a little water if you're not using the irrigation system and you feel like you need to, and then just close it right back up again. Does that make sense? Any questions at this point?
Everything gets planted before we do all that.
That is a great question. So the way that I would do it is I would put in the support structures so that you know the outline of the area that's going to be underneath the low tunnel. Plant in that before you've put everything on it, and then cover it up. Right? Because if you plant while the bed is empty and then you're digging and you don't know exactly where everything lies.
Or if your students are experimenting with the timing of their seeds, maybe you do one when you first build a structure, but maybe you want to wait 2 weeks and plant another row. A good idea is to label where you've already planted so that when you open it back up 2-3 weeks from now, you're not like, did I already plant there or not? So then that'll be easy to track your data too. If you're like, oh, these seeds were planted on November 1st, these seeds were planted on November 15th. Come March, which ones are doing better?
I was gonna say, it's also the fun thing about season extension is there's no wrong time to plant. If you get it set up, nothing grows just for some reason, do it again. If you don't even get it set up till January or February on a nice day, set it up then. There's no wrong time to plant
Unless the
or to
ground
set
is
up the
frozen.
structure. Unless the ground's frozen, yeah. But there's no real wrong time to do it. Even if you get the structure up and you do a quick round in November and December, January's kind of quiet, do it again in February. Plant more seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be
Yeah.
that you find that when you first, if you plant them later, maybe they lie dormant for a while, but then they're the ones that pop up as soon as it gets warm in the spring, and then you get an earlier harvest in the springtime.
Yeah, it's really cool. That early harvest is just phenomenal.
exciting.
You can get peas in March, and you're
Yeah.
like, whoa!
It kind of ties back to that question or the statement in that anticipation guide is there an exact science to this that farmers know and follow? Yes, there is some science to it, but that's what farmers do is they try it and they try different things and they kind of track data and they themselves learn what they need to do kind of to improve their yields, improve their harvest in the following seasons. So that's kind of the work really the science work that you're doing with your students is collecting this data and learning so that the following years, the next students can take that information and kind of evolve it and perfect it even more. And after doing this for 3 or 4 years, you should know, like, okay, between December 1st and December 15th, that is the time that most of our seeds germinated and did the best in the spring. Let's try that this year and maybe even try to narrow that window. You'll do that work with your students as best as you can throughout the years, right? Cool.